Good morning, and thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup. I'm Neeraj Shah. Let's take stock of what's happening around the world. And I must say that the global cues are a bit benign on the day ahead of the Fed. Sorry, just arranging my sheet for the whole thing. Okay, so the global news flow first. Oil is steady as OPEC plus supply, as well as the weak China data caps prices. In fact, if anything, the trend has largely been okay or not so bullish, which is great news. Asian markets gain ahead of the manufacturing data and the Fed decision. India has raised the windfall tax on crude oil, has cut on diesel and jet fuel. And India's Q2 GDP growth will surprise on the upside, says RBI's Shakti Kanta Das. So, well, and that's a positive too. And the US markets were positive, though I must say the futures are marginally lower, and you would expect them to be tentative ahead of the Fed decision, to be honest, even though you would argue, some quarters could argue that it's a foregone conclusion, but be that as it may, the US markets, firstly, they did okay, 0.5% odd on an average for all the three indices. The other cues haven't changed too much, I must say. So 10-year yields are still at that 4.9 mark, dollar index still at 106, 106 half. Volatility may have ebbed a little bit, but that can creep up any single day. Frankly, it's a factor of what happens on a given day, so won't read too much into the VIX per se unless there's a major move. GIFT Nifty indicates a flat start, maybe marginally positive, if you will. And remember, we've after 2 days of gains, we actually had a slightly dull day yesterday. So in some sense, we gave up some gains. Let's wait and watch what happens today. I do think that the global market setup, and that's the trade setup for the day while the GIFT Nifty is flat, that the global markets are benign, even if they might be tentative ahead of the Fed meet, and that should aid sentiment, if you will. I've now, having spoken to a clutch of PMS and AIF investors off air, I can safely tell you that everybody's saying that the pockets they would bet on, they are the economy linked, domestic economy linked pockets. And that's where maximum new money seems to be going. Whether it's going in building materials, whether it's going in infrastructure, power infrastructure, to an extent, railway infrastructure as well, and not just the Titagars and the Jupiter wagons of the world, because they have seen some money flow already, but slight ancillaries out there too are starting to see some very small names, of course, if you will, but just saying that some smart money started to go in some of those pockets. And what is getting avoided, I think fertilizer stocks predominantly because of a comment that came in the Mangalore Chemicals con call, and I'll get to that at the end of trade setup, or select chemical stocks, which look wobbly in the current environment. So need to be careful about those. Now, the reason why I've moved to stocks to watch so soon is because there's just a very long laundry list of companies that might be reacting today to news flow and to results. A lot of news flow, a lot of result stocks. So first, the news flow. In SBI Card, the company and Reliance Retail are set to roll out Reliance SBI Card as per the exchange filing. Now, viewers, the numbers for SBI Cards were not good. Most brokerages also were not that sanguine on SBI Cards. But the key is, 2 days ago or 3 days ago, there was this whole talk, actually just after the results came out, there was this talk that Geo Financial Services will team up with some of the other companies to roll out credit cards. Now, if uh, can this be a bit of a respite? I don't know, because this is Reliance Retail, and JFS might still do that with SBI maybe, and that might still be an overhang. But just believe that this might, who knows, this announcement, fairly important from an SBI Cards perspective. Can it help the stock today? Remains to be seen. JSW Energy, Prashant Jain resigns as joint MD and CEO of the company. He expressed his intention to take early retirement to pursue personal interest. Now, JSW Energy is a large behemoth. It is seen before Prashant, I believe Mr. Sagar was the CEO, and the transition happened smoothly. I presume this transition will happen smoothly as well. But we know that Prashant Jain headed the best tenor of the company, if you will. The company got transformed materially out there. Will the street view this as a negative? Let's wait and watch. Um, I'm certain that a group and the company of this size will find a suitable replacement. But yes, is this a loss? Most certainly, because Prashant was doing a fabulous job at JSW Energy's end. So let's wait and watch what happens here. Ethos, the QIPs got launched. Set the floor price at 1627, discount of about 5% on the floor price, if at all. Watch out for Ethos today with the QIP successfully done. then you might see the stock even have a good move. So watch out for this one. Zaggle has a couple of good announcements. It's entered into a co-branded agreement with Kotak Mahindra Bank for 3 years, in customer service agreement with Toshiba Software India's private for 36 months. So a couple of interesting announcements there. Lubin has got an AIR from US FDA for Mandideep Unit 2 manufacturing facility. The inspection closed with facility receiving classification of no action initiated. The beauty is, amidst all the companies like Dr. Reddy's and a few others getting these observations from the US FDA, Lupin is coming out smelling like roses. So, not a bad announcement. Let's see if it does well today. Airtel, the numbers came out, and the Jeffries note sums up the numbers well. They were buy with a target price of 1,085. They say encouraging performance continues with higher postpaid subscriber additions. Higher margins in India and strong free cash flow generation are the key highlights. They expect 16-17% India revenue and EBITDA CAGR over FY24 to 26. The moderating capex will support deleveraging of $7 billion debt over FY25 to 26. And yes, post 5G, capex likely will moderate a little bit. Does that help ARPUs and eventually not just the ARPU, but eventual numbers, debt servicing, etc. all? So if there are higher tariffs, it helps ARPUs. If there is lower capex, it probably helps the company retire some of the debt. Could all of that be earnings accretive for Airtel over the course of the next 2-3 years? Let's see. Telcos typically have capex lined up almost every single year for one reason or the other. I mean, who knows? Who can predict this really? But yes, you have to assume that now with the duopoly out there in place, and yes, Vodafone are close third, but losing subscribers every month almost, is the tide in favor of telcos? Maybe you could argue. Let's see if Airtel reacts today. L&T was interesting. So the order in this is CLSA's note on L&T. They said the order inflow spikes and the capital return takes ROE 15% higher, above 15%. The foray into fabless semiconductor design is a significant step in its technology progression as per CLSA. The company is guided for 39% growth in its prospects pipeline for 6 months, FY24, and the improving outlook with its US 101 billion pipeline up 39% and a spike in GCC capex. All of this helps. The actions to improve return ratios and capital return should soothe nerves around the lower margins. And then remember, the CFO has said that they expect Larsen to perform better in the second half of 2023-24. So watch out for this one. Watch out for Birlasoft. While IT service companies have had a lackadaisical Q2 in most parts, Birlasoft seems to have done okay. The new CEO strategies, are they working? That's what a broker had said. The revenue is up 3.73, so that's in line, but 3.73 is not bad growth. EBIT up 8%, and EBIT margins expand relative to Bloomberg estimates, relative to what they did quarter on quarter. So 14.17 versus 13.6. The net profit up 5.47% at 145 crores. The expectation was 136 crores. Very good show by Birlasoft. Who knows, the stock could react. Paradeep Phosphates, I'm not quite sure. So the revenues were up 20%, which is a good number. And yes, the reported numbers look solid, right? EBITDA versus EBITDA loss, PAT versus PAT loss. But there was a PAT loss because the company had an inventory loss of 549 crores in Q2 FY23. Left for that, the numbers could be impressive, but difficult to quite gather that. And remember, like I said, on fertilizers, fertilizers and fertilizer linked stocks, a bit not 100% sure because of the comments on Mangalore Chemicals. Actually, can we pull that up before we move to the other numbers, if possible? Otherwise, we'll come to at the end of the show. But yeah, what stood out for me really was this. In the MCFL call, they say that the next 2 quarters are very challenging for industry due to hardening commodity raw material prices, reduction in subsidy, and lower reservoir levels due to erratic monsoons. So watch out for Mangalore Chemicals. Watch out for the fertilizer pack is what I mean. And therefore, Paradeep, again, it's a company that is promising a lot, that's holding a lot of promise as per the con calls, as per people who are betting on the company as well. Can it do well? Remains to be seen. Balu Forge, it's an expensive stock, mind you, but look at those numbers. Revenues up 130%. Margins at 21.6 versus 6%. I mean, that's a solid beat. And PAT up 4.8x at 23 crores versus 4.8 crores. It's quite stunning what Balu Forge has managed to do in this quarter, and remains to be seen if it can actually do better going ahead. I mean, the stock has actually had a pretty decent run, I must say, over the last 1 year. So that's to be kept in mind. But yes, the trajectory of margins has certainly improved. Until September 2022, it was below 15%. From December 2022, 20%, 17%, 19%. This time around, nearly 21.6%. So it looks solid what's managed to do in the last 3-4 quarters. Can it continue? Remains to be seen. So will the stock get rewarded today? I suspect it could, despite the expensive valuations. There's a stock called Bondada Engineering. Revenues are 152% for Q2. Margins at 6.88 versus 7.34. So that's a bit of a bummer, but the net profit up at 14.68 versus 4.34 because of other income as well. Good showing there. It's not 15, it's actually 14.68 crores, but be that as it may. Good showing. Let's see if the stock reacts. KEI, relative to estimates, better numbers too. And even otherwise, 21% revenue growth, margins expand, PAT up 31%, could do well. Amara Raja, slightly better than estimated, if you will. Margins at 13.6 versus 13.3 due to lower raw material cost and better product mix. Otherwise, decent show, could do well. Star Health, reported profit up 34%. Then Five Star Finance, I haven't given the numbers, but I think that did well. So watch out for that too. What didn't do well, Naveen Flooring, weak print on across line items, including margins, much lower than estimated, 20.8 versus 24%. I think Jeffrey's note sums it up. The 2Q shows the weak print and multiple challenges for the business. Revenue bit decline quarter on quarter, were much below the Jeffrey's estimates as well. The sad part was that the weakness was broad-based with product deferrals and execution challenges. The management has hinted at the possibility of raising equity capital to de-risk the balance sheet and pursue capex. Well, let's see if the market really punishes the stock, which has already been punished after the MD resigned. Let's see if that happens today. Tambo Sugar Mills, as is with most sugar companies, the reported numbers not the best. Thyrocare was much lower than estimated as well, especially the reported profit at 20 crores versus 24 crores print. Not the most healthiest. Margins at 25.4 versus 27.8 expected. So left a bit to be desired on the operational front for Thyrocare. So do watch out for this one as well. Clutch of conversations lined up today on BQ Prime. Before we wrap up, trade setup. Mahesh Nandurkar of Jefferies would be joining in at 10 a.m. Lots to talk to him about. So watch out for that conversation at 10 a.m. today. Looking forward to that. Mahanagar Gas had a good print. Ashu Singhal would join in at 9:30 a.m. to talk about those numbers. Adani Wilmar MD and CEO Anshu Malik would join in at 12:30 to talk about their numbers. You'll hear from Mahindra Life Spaces and Rights at 11 a.m. in the Stocks in Focus segment. So that's to be monitored as well. We have the conversation with Railtel and a few others. So that's to be monitored too. Thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup. Have a great day ahead.